Hello and welcome to Property Insight. On today's video we're going to be talking about OpenRent. If you've ever thought about using OpenRent to advertise for a tenant or manage properties possibly, stay tuned because we're going to tell you all about our experiences of how easy we found OpenRent to use and why you should too. My name's Neil Harding.
My name's Mark Ashworth and welcome back to Property Insights. OpenRent.
Yeah, OpenRent.
A great solution for sort of landlords that want to manage their own stuff. I don't think if you're using an agent, it wouldn't be part of the remit at all. So it's purely owner-managed stuff.
That's right. Yeah.
And what sets it apart for me is the fact that you can get a listing on Rightmove because, you know, the world and his wife is literally looking on Rightmove for their next property to rent out. So the fact that it's listed on there, you have to pay a bit more for that, but more, which we'll cover. But the fact that it gets listed on Rightmove is a Brucey bonus, really. That is a really big deal.
You discovered OpenRent way before I did, and that's probably because you predominantly self-manage your properties, and I have predominantly used a letting agent.
Yeah, so I've done a bit of both. So back in the past, what I used to do is I used to use an agency to do a tenant find service. So this was back in the day where there used to be tenant fees, do you remember them? Where agencies would typically charge an application fee to the tenant, which would cover all things like referencing and all that sort of stuff. And actually they were making a fairly decent profit on that sort of stuff. And then, so therefore your tenant find fee for the letting agent actually wasn't that high. And then when the tenant fee ban came in, the price for those services went directly then to the landlord, where typically now if you were trying to find a tenant for a property that you're renting out, they would normally charge you 50, 60, sometimes 70, sometimes even 100% of the first month's rent for that service, which obviously is a fair amount of money. So I did some research and found OpenRent, and the only difference really was the fact that anything physical that you needed to do at the property, such as do the viewings, you would need to do yourself, but everything else would be handled by them in the system. So all the compliance stuff, the writing of the AST, the setting up of the viewings, the managing the deposit and registering that correctly, that could all be handled by the OpenRent system for a very small fee of just, but we're going to cover the prices, but it's about 70 quid. Now, compare that with your month's rent, that's a phenomenal difference.
So it seems like a very reasonable charge, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And interestingly enough, a couple of months ago, there was a bit of a fallout, or there was a bit of a press about OpenRent because they decided that they were going to come off the Rightmove platform. But it was really a PR play to basically kick Rightmove in where
Do you think it was?
Yeah, absolutely. They couldn't strike up a deal, basically, could they? So I think Rightmove were, I mean, I don't know for sure, but I think reading between the lines, they just couldn't agree the fee or the percentage or whatever it was, however they work. Because I had a phone call from my letting agent saying to me, have you heard, we're going to be really busy because OpenRent's come out of being on Rightmove. And I was like, okay, I'm sure that's got to be resolved somehow. And of course, a week later, they were back on and it was fine. So they obviously renegotiated, because OpenRent is used by, literally it lists tens of thousands of properties every month up and down the country.
It's too much business to miss out on, isn't
Absolutely.
it? I mean, if it was a marketing employee, as you suggest, I mean, it did a very good job of it because it certainly hit a lot of the property press, didn't it? I mean, it was all the Facebook chat that was all about it for a good week or two.
Absolutely. So what does it offer? Well, I mean, look, we've got nothing to gain by this at all. We're not being sponsored or anything like that. So we just want to
We're not getting paid for this YouTube video.
Yeah. We just want to share the fact that, it's a good service. And if you do self-manage and you want to be fully compliant, then the best way to do it is through something like OpenRent. And I don't actually think there is anything comparable, to be perfectly fair.
No, I mean, there are other companies, aren't there? There's one called Renter, which is spelled INTR. There are other ones out there.
Okay.
But I think OpenRent, for me, is the one that's most established. It's the one that we've both used, so we wanted to share our experience on it because I think we're both fans. For people that are thinking about using OpenRent, we would, suggest, give it a go. If you're thinking about doing it and you think it's right for you, give it a go.
So let's run through a couple of the benefits then. So you've got a free service where you can advertise on the OpenRent portal. So this is the OpenRent website. You can do that for free. However, I would recommend strongly that you pay the extra money and get the advert onto Rightmove, Zoopla and on the market, which will cost you £49. They also offer a service which is £69, which includes all of the tenancy contract creation, handling the deposit, getting that registered correctly, and you can choose whichever scheme that you use. So if you've got a preference for the TDS or My Deposits or the other one, I can't remember which one it is, then that's fine. You can use that service. I always pay the extra £20 for referencing, so that's whether you're referencing each tenant or the guarantor, is £20 per reference, and that's just payable usually on a credit card, and then they will basically use open banking to verify their income in terms of their wages or their salary going in.
And the landlord reference check and
Yes.
employment check and the proof of income through open banking, all of that I found to be super useful. It's very useful.
Yeah, absolutely. They can offer, there's a lot of bolt-on services like inventories and gas safety certificates and EICR certificates and all that sort of stuff. So if you don't have that set up already, or if you're not using somebody local, then you can add those services on. Also photography, you can get them to come around and take pictures of your property. I'd always recommend, as a photographer by trade, that you should get really good quality photos of your property. They also offer rent guarantee insurance, which I understand.
Yeah,
taken.
I think that's great. I've used OpenRent a few times now. This whole thing represents a bit of a gear change for me, because people who know me will know that I've traditionally always used a letting agent for everything, but actually I've started to self-manage a few. Even with letting agents though, I just like the idea of rent guarantee insurance in that first year in particular of a tenancy, where it's a little bit of a leap into the unknown, isn't it? You perhaps don't fully know yet how the tenant-landlord relationship is going to play out. Of course, you've done all your due diligence that you can. Your references will tell you as much as they can do, but you're still sort of, to some extent, fingers crossed a little bit that they are actually going to treat the place with respect, like their home, and pay the rent on time. So rent guarantee insurance, I find typically it's 200 and something pounds per annum.
If you're not using a letting agent and you're saving your 10% management fee because you're managing yourself, then to spend £200 out of your property income just to guarantee that rent for the first month is probably well worth it. The only thing I would say, because you've referenced the tenants, because you've got a landlord reference, and because they will offer you rent guarantee insurance, kind of indicates that the tenant is a suitable tenant in terms of their ability to pay and their credit referencing and all that stuff. So I think that sometimes insurance companies do this thing whereby they'll insure you, but only if there is very, very low risk, or if they think they're not going to have to pay out. So the fact that you actually get offered the rent guarantee insurance in itself can be a big green tick, let's say, and is questionable as to whether you actually need it, particularly if you've got a guarantor as well. So I would say if you can't get a guarantor, definitely get rent guarantee insurance. If you can get a guarantor and you pay £20 for the referencing of the guarantor, you might feel that that's enough, and you probably, having both is not entirely necessary. Or for belt and braces, if you just want to make sure that you're fully protected in the event of any uncertain kind of things happening with the tenancy, because people's situations do change, and I think that's probably when you would need to use it is when a situation changes. But you have to take your own risk management on that, don't you?
Yeah, a headline for the policy is that OpenRent rent guarantee insurance will pay out up to £3,000 of rent per month, and will pay for the legal costs in the event that unfortunately you have to go through an eviction process. I think there's also an enhanced level of malicious damage cover included in it as well, in case your building's insurance doesn't include that. So I think it's pretty good.
It's worth having a look at anyway. Have a look and see what you think. Just a couple of other things which are the management service. So you've experienced sort of, I'm not sure if you actually got it set up yet.
I haven't put this to the test yet, but I've taken it out on the ones where I've used OpenRent. I've used this service they call, I've paid for the service that they call Management Plus.
Okay.
I think you can only take this out if you've gone through from start to finish the whole tenancy creation process with OpenRent, perhaps like a few of their things actually, which is maybe on the one hand is a positive in that they're in control end to end of the whole process, so they can offer these, I think, fairly competitive prices and good services. But maybe on the downside, you can't necessarily just cherry pick the bits and pieces that you want. So as a user, that's perhaps not ideal for everybody. But Management Plus, I I like. I mean, again, I think it's quite price competitive. It's £19 a month currently. Well, essentially, it's a home emergency insurance policy. That's what it is, and it gives you 3 call-outs a year for home emergencies, and it'll include the cost of the repairs and labour in the call-out. Not ridiculously expensive when you think about what you're getting for that. Each individual claim or incident, I think, has a cap value of £1,000, but that would cover most things. But it can cover home emergencies such as a burst water pipe, such as all the electrics have gone because of a complete electricity failure on the fuse box, for example. Not a trip, but that can be reset, but a complete electricity fail. But one thing that I really like about it is that the tenant can report the issue directly with OpenRent. You don't have to go via the landlord, and then OpenRent will appoint the contractors themselves directly through
So you're made aware of what's going on, except that you don't actually have to get involved in arranging it.
Yeah, the incident's reported and it's on the dashboard in OpenRent, so you can see it. If you logged in as your landlord in your account, you could see the reported issue, so you can see it's there and then it's being dealt with. But yeah, if you're unavailable for 24 hours for whatever reason, the tenant knows that they're still going to be able to deal with it, which is great, I think.
Sounds fantastic. Well, we look forward to getting some feedback on that when.
Yeah, as it's put to the test. Yeah, we'll know, yeah.
So, we said there wasn't nothing in it for us.
Did we lie?
Yeah, maybe. well, we have an affiliate link, which basically means that you get a free trial. And it gets us.
Yeah, a little credit, yeah.
So, if you are interested and you want to take a look, click the link in the description below and that will take you through. You'll be able to try out OpenRent. We do recommend it.
Yeah, why not?
And obviously it's recommended for self-managing landlords.
Yeah.
There are other services available. Obviously, they're not unique, but we like it, so go take a look.
Yeah, I mean, I found it to be really easy to use. A really logical step-by-step process. There's a messenger service within the platform as well. And one of the really useful, I know it sounds silly, but one of the really useful things is the tenancy contract is signed electronically. So you don't have to, gone are the days when you have to arrange to meet somebody, with a witness there at the same time if you want a witness, and the guarantor as well if you want a guarantor, and you all sign in triplicate or something in wet ink, that. You
don't have to, print out reams and reams of paper to provide the tenant with all the right documentation, and it's all completely and utterly compliant. So everything works. It's all really good. We strongly recommend you go and check it out. So we really do hope that you found that useful, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one.